In today's video, we're going to walk you through exactly how to approach the limited by budget status inside Google Ads, as you see here. And what this limited by budget status actually is, it's not a status to tell you that there's going to be any actual issues with your performance overall, but it's simply just letting you know that if you wanted to increase your daily budget, the search volume is there to allow you to do so. And the thing with the limited by budget status as well is that you only actually want to increase your daily budget as long as your campaign is performing well and is clearly profitable. And you also want to scale further. So, obviously, boost the amount of conversions you're getting month after month compared to what you're already getting. Because, obviously, the last thing you want to do with a campaign that isn't performing well or you can't handle any more leads for is increase the daily budget, because throwing more budget at Google Ads when things are going wrong is never the right answer. And what you can do to see how limited by budget you really are is go to all campaigns and then to campaigns. And if you can't see this column here, search loss impression share due to budget, you can pull that up here in columns, and under all columns you'll see it under competitive metrics. So pull up your columns for search impression share, search loss impression share due to rank, and search loss impression share due to budget, which are the two metrics that go into seeing why you're missing out on impression share. And once you have those pulled up, you can see in this campaign, for example, that our impression share is around 56%, but our search loss impression share due to budget is nearly 30%. Meaning that if we had a much higher daily budget, for example, where let's just say we doubled the current daily budget that we had in place, then by simply increasing our budget alone, we'd be able to bring this search impression share here closer to even 90%. And in most cases, you'll actually see that most of the time your search loss impression share due to rank is the main reason you're missing out on a search impression share. But in this case, if we simply had a higher daily budget, then we'd have a much higher search impression share just by making that one change alone. And the reason why it's just a useful metric to look at is that if you have a lower search impression share than you'd like to have, and you'd like to have your ads showing more often, especially if you're happy with how the ads are performing, then it makes perfect sense to look at this and see that, okay, if my search loss impression share is this amount due to budget, then I can simply just increase my daily budget and I'll have a much higher search impression share just by making that one change alone. The next thing you want to make sure that you have in place if you are running a campaign that is limited by budget is make sure that you don't have multiple campaigns that are all limited by budget, because it just doesn't make sense in most cases to have multiple campaigns running unless you're offering services that are completely unrelated to one another and are operating in completely different locations. Apart from those two exceptions, then 90% of the time you should really have just one campaign running, because if you had two or three campaigns that were running and each were limited by budget, then you'd simply be able to remove the limited by budget status by having them all consolidated into one campaign instead. What you can also do if you have the limited by budget status and you're not in a position where you want to increase your daily budget is look at all of the keywords that you're targeting, and in particular the ones that have the most clicks. Because what you can do is look at these keywords and see, are any of these keywords not getting many conversions for the amount of clicks that they're getting? And if, for example, you have keywords that have a conversion rate of under 10%, then you know that that keyword mightn't be as good a performer as most of the other keywords that you're running that are getting clicks. And you can see here, for example, that we have paused some keywords that haven't got a conversion rate as good as the others. And we can even see here for this artificial grass installation keyword that this is a keyword we'll most likely end up pausing as well, because this keyword here, for example, artificial grass landscaping, obviously has a significantly better cost per conversion than this one here, which with obviously a much higher cost per conversion, which is a lot worse than our average cost per lead for this campaign. And this is just so useful because you're going to really be able to make a lot more out of the daily budget that you're working with when you're only running the keywords that are already getting you a solid cost per conversion. And the best place to start with this is just looking at the keywords that have the most clicks inside your campaign and potentially pausing those that are getting a lot of clicks but no conversions, or have a much higher cost per conversion than the other keywords in each ad group that you're running. What you can also do as well is adjust your bidding. So if you're limited by budget, it clearly means that you have no issues at all spending your budget because the search volume is there. So what you can do as well is be stricter with your bid. So for example, using maximize conversions, you can set a target CPA. And if you already do have a target CPA set, you can simply decrease that and be stricter with your bid. And the same thing applies as well if you're using maximize clicks. You can simply just set a lower maximum cost per click bid limit. So that way you're being stricter on what you're willing to pay per conversion or what you're willing to pay per click. And what we talked about inside the account as well of pausing the lower performers when it comes to the keywords also applies to everything, including your ads, ad groups, and every other little aspect of your account. And what I'd recommend watching next is another video I made walking through all of the main optimization tasks that you should complete on a regular basis inside Google Ads. Because the more you optimize your account, the more you're actually able to make the most of the daily budget that you're working with, which will allow you to keep getting more leads within the same budget rather than constantly increasing the daily budget that you have in place. So I'll leave the link to that video as well up above. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and hopefully I'll see you inside the next one.